Joining me now,
Yeah,
Chanley Painter. You probably recognize her if you've been watching the Daybell trial, and of course now the Bryan Kohberger hearing. She's been on this since it broke. She is at the courthouse. Just telling me that you were up very early this morning, Chanley, to be sure that you got in the room.
yeah, that's right, Nate. So actually, there was a line that formed outside the Slaytal County Courthouse in Moscow, Idaho, around 3 a.m. is when people started to show up to garner one of those seats inside the courtroom, which were first come, first served. And of course, the line was probably 60 or so people by the time they actually let the crowd into the courtroom, and it up really quickly. And there were some even in the overflow room as well to watch this all unfold and see Bryan Kohberger in person. Not only just media, Nate, but also members of this community that drove in or came just to be a part of this. These murders shook this community, less than a year ago, 6 months ago, I believe it was. They're still in shock here, and they're just wanting to see this process unfold.
So, Chanley, talk us through once you got in the courtroom. We heard Mr. Kohberger say a few things. I mean, very short, but he didn't enter a plea. What was that like? Hearing the judge read the charges and hearing him respond.
Yeah. Right. So, of course, we're sitting in the courtroom. I know you've been in lots of courtrooms too, Nate, where it's kind of this grim silence as we wait for the defendant to walk in. All eyes are on that door. We know he's going to enter, and we hear it open. Everyone goes, it's like this collective gasp almost in the gallery as this alleged mass murderer enters wearing his orange jail issued garb and kind of walks robotically in his ankle shackles to the counsel table, stoic and emotional. And then, as the judge reads the rights, reads the indictment of charges against him, he answers, yes. He does it very directly and sharply, like he wants to come across confident in the courtroom. And then, of course, the family members of the victims are sitting there just glaring, Nate, at him the whole time that he's in there.
And then there was a second hearing today, Chanley. What was that about?
There was a second hearing for scheduling outstanding matters in this case. Motions back and forth regarding this extensive gag order that the magistrate judge put on the case early on that prevents the parties and likely the victims' families' representatives from speaking about this case. So there's a motion to clarify that or vacate that by a media coalition that was scheduled out for June 9th to actually hear those arguments. And then also there's outstanding motions, as with any litigation or trial, about discovery, motion to compel discovery from the defense. That's going to be heard June 27th from the defense. So that was taken care of in that second hearing. And Kohberger, again, he was in there. He walked in a second time into the courtroom. And this time, Nate, I'm sitting on the front row right behind defense counsel table. And he glances towards the gallery, and I made eye contact with Bryan Kohberger for a split second. And it was like my stomach dropped. I froze. His eyes were piercing and dark, and it felt like an eternity to me. But of course, it probably only lasted a split second. It was just a wild moment to sit there and to see someone who's accused of such horrific things.
Yeah, I can imagine that was a little surreal. And now everybody says, why don't they have the trial next week? Let's get this thing on the road. But we're not going to be seeing an actual trial, assuming there aren't any delays or plea agreements or anything, at least until the fall.
That's right. So interesting that the defense asked the judge to set his trial date right outside the speedy trial time limit, which the judge set it for October 2nd of this year. So a few months from now. A lot of times they set an initial trial date, right? And it's continued somehow. There's a motion to change venue, or the defense decides to hold off on things. But as of right now, it's going to happen pretty quickly within a year.
Yeah, that is quickly. I mean, of course, you and I have both been following the Daybell trial, which took 3.5 years to actually get to a trial. So I would be somewhat surprised if it does happen. But Lori Vallow did not waive her right to a speedy trial, and maybe Kohberger is insistent that they go forward with it. And then the prosecution, I believe, is at 60 days they have to file if they want the death penalty.
That's right, Nate. So 60 days from today, the prosecution must file that notice of whether or not they will seek the death penalty. They have to, of course, allege the certain aggravating factors they would pursue, much like, again, we saw for Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell in that case. So we shall see. This is something that is expected, given that there were 4 victims and the brutal nature of their murders and the evidence that we do know from the affidavit. The prosecution is expected to do that. But again, we'll have to wait and see. And that could, of course, also delay the trial, right, if that's filed and they need some more time to prepare for the case.
Chanley, what's the mood like around the town? I think that the university let out a week or two ago. So I know that there was some pushback, or at least people not wanting media earlier this year. And I can only imagine, I mean, they want to live their life. Is that still the mood? What are people, are they able to talk to you, or do they just kind of want their privacy?
Yeah, this is a very different Moscow than I experienced last November. I was here in this small town within days of this quadruple murder, and this town was on edge. Community members were scared for 7 weeks. There was a mass murderer on the loose. They had no idea who it was. And even, after the arrest and after his first appearances in court, you can still tell that this has left such a scar and a stain on the community. But these are vigilant people. These are people who want justice, and they want to see it unfold, and they come together. Every time I'm here, I meet new people. I love being in Moscow. It's a fun, small town. And I spoke to several people who showed up today to just watch this court process unfold. A couple of mothers who dropped their kids off at daycare and then came over to the courthouse to watch it unfold. We see a lot of court watchers that will come, a father and daughter duo who traveled in to be here today. And they just they feel personally affected, of course, by what happened. And they say that nothing like this ever happened here. They're completely shocked still, and they want to make sure justice is served, and their hearts go out to the families. And Moscow is a strong community. I've seen that. There's still signs across town about supporting the police and this process of justice.
You and I joked a few weeks ago at the Daybell trial that you should open an office in Idaho. You're going to know every small town from all corners of the state. I haven't had a chance to ask you officially, what was your reaction to Lori Vallow Daybell being found guilty, all counts?
That was to be expected. I think, you and I both sat in the courtroom every day. We watched the evidence unfold in front of us. We had our eyes on the jury, noting their reaction to the evidence. So it was not surprising at all to me, the outcome, the verdict in that case. It was just a little disappointing me that I couldn't be there on verdict day. As I told you, in advance, that I had a long planned time off or a day off, and that I had to go do something else. But my Court TV team, of course, had it covered, and I was watching from afar. But I definitely believe that justice was served there.
Yeah, Chanley was there for 6 weeks, and on the very last day, on verdict day, she put family above job, which is to be admired to do that. And then she took a week off from Idaho, and now she's back. So, Chanley, thank you very much. Is there anything you want to add? Anything you think our viewers should know about this case or the Daybell case? Anything else you want to touch on?
No, I love being in Idaho. I hate that the reason why I'm here, of course, is not a positive reason, but the people of Idaho remind me of where I'm from. I'm from Arkansas. I am a rural state in the South, and so it kind of feels like being home here, except for the snow. So I'm glad there's no snow currently where I am in Moscow. It's warmed up a bit. But we're going to continue to follow those cases. This Kohberger will be here for every hearing. Nate, and of course, as the Vallow, the sentencing coming up, and Chad's trial. So more to come there for that.
Yeah. All right. You can catch Chanley on Court TV, following all of the developments on all of these cases and more. And thank you so much, Chanley. Nice chatting with you.